we've been on the lounge together.
I know. It's been a bit of a while, and you've had some great guests as well.
Had some amazing guests,
Yeah,
and it has been a different conversation, right? It's a different
yeah,
conversation when you're having these lives with women compared to men. And just for the audience, I just want to give a bit of an update as to why we actually started these leadership lounges. Andrew and I have known each other for, gosh, just over 20 years now. We
easy.
both did our psychology degree together, focused on organizational psychology, and really have really gelled in the space of business coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching, and group and team coaching. And over a year ago, I built a new office and I said, we should start to talk about leadership more, because I often find that, when I started running our weekly webinars 4 years ago, and we've now had 10,000 people attend those, I realized that there's not enough information out there around what is really happening with leadership now. And I said to you, do you want to do these lives with me? And you said, yes, absolutely. So it's really a chance for us to talk about what we're seeing in leadership right now. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are some changes? And how is leadership evolving?
Mm.
And so welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, and I would say just one thing I would add to what you just said in that introduction, right? And it's there actually is a lot of information around leadership. There's not a lot of grounded information. So you get stuff that's, it's academically correct and theoretically correct, but the leadership lounges, let's really get some grounding. Get some grounded information out there. I think that for me is why I love doing this.
You're absolutely right. And you know what I often find, and I've probably said this 1,000 times in my life already, but I so often find that leaders know what to do, which is the theory. This is what I should do. This is how I should lead. This is who I should be as a leader. And they know the why. They know why they should do that. And they know when they should do it, now, later, next year. They know who they should do it with, their team, their stakeholders, their business partners, their clients, whatever it is. But the bit they struggle with is that how.
Mm,
And, when people don't know the how, I see two things happen: nothing,
mm,
right? Or
mm.
the second thing is they do it, but they don't do it right. And when leadership's not done right, we lose staff, we have disengagement, we have people that are not happy, people that, are not engaged, and we see such an impact. So you're absolutely right. And I think for me, I get to show leaders how to do it right. And there is so many tools and models out there with how to do it. So you're spot on.
So a question, and I know we're going to go. We got a really interesting topic to talk about today. But the question I just wanted to do before that, right? When you talk about the how of leadership, right?
Yeah.
There's a third thing, and that is they copy what they were shown.
Yeah. Observational learning.
Yeah. So if they said, "Oh, this is the way you lead," they're basing it on someone else, someone else's leadership style. So, for example,
Mm.
mentioned we both did our psych degree together, and I looked at particularly how do leaders lead under when I left university. I was working with leaders who were leading under extreme pressure of life and limb scenarios. So I was working with
Yeah.
mining and military and things like that, medical, where on a good day when something goes wrong, somebody gets injured, and on a bad day, somebody dies, right? And
Nice.
in the
Yeah.
finance world, on a good day, you get wrapped over the knuckles. On a bad day, you've got massive reputation damage that you can't pull back from, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
in just about every scenario where I was coaching a leader in that space, they were copying some person from the past, mentor, and
Yeah.
the way that person led was probably very appropriate for that time and that set of circumstances, but they
Yeah.
hadn't, the circumstances and context had changed and they were still trying to lead that way. That's the only model they had. So
Yeah.
what the stuff we do is important. I think this is a good segue into you've gone through a bit of a renaissance on the way you think about leadership very, very recently. And you're sort of drawing
Yeah.
a connection between leadership and sales. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's probably two really core components within our business. The first one is leadership development, which is, very much development programs, coaching, group coaching, executive coaching, that sort of space. But then on the flip side, we also do a lot of sales development. Well, I'm going to call it soft skills, okay? Because I really do work in the financial services space. I've been in financial services for 33 years, so I work and develop a lot of financial planners. And what I've really noticed is many companies see leadership and sales as two very distinct areas, right?
Yeah.
But I always say you can't have a great sales team if you don't have great leadership, right? They work very much together. So I'm often trying to not only help them develop the people, the financial planners or the dealer groups or the superannuation companies and things like that, but I'm also trying to help them understand the power of developing leaders, because when we have great leadership, the impact that has to the sales team is powerful, right? They get coaching, they get mentoring, they get a goal, they get a vision, they get clarity around where they're going and what they need to do. Great leaders will hold sales teams accountable. So to me, it makes such logical sense. But for many people, they don't see them as going hand in hand.
No, the sales function is seen as just a function of management. It's not
Yeah, yeah.
not a function of leadership. Yeah. In your and it's good that you mentioned about working with financial planners, right? Is it necessary for a leader to have like experience in the field? They've got to be a good seller themselves.
You know, I've had many conversations about this in the past. I don't think they need to be a financial planner in the past to be able to lead financial planners. So I don't think they need that. However, I do think they need to have a fairly good understanding of strategy, of compliance, of obligations, of the financial services as a whole. And understand the workings of that. I've seen many leaders being pulled in from other industries leading financial planners. And in many situations, the financial planners they're leading don't have a lot of trust or credibility for the leader because they haven't had that experience.
Yeah.
So I do feel like there has to be some industry experience and real deep knowledge, or willing to really learn the compliance and the obligations and that space in order to have the credibility to influence, right? To influence the team, to develop the team, to coach the team, to be able to hold them accountable, to help problem solve, you know, those types of areas. As a leader, like if a financial planner is struggling with sales and you don't have an understanding of how they can close sales, or how they can overcome objections, or how they can ask more deep and meaningful questions, then the financial leader is probably not going to be the first port of call for them.
Yeah, I mean it's a great point you make. I mean, I've led teams where I know nothing about what that team is doing on the ground, right? I'm working with a company at the moment where they do waste management right now. How do you do a live actual sale on the ground with that? But what we did was we employed a sales manager who has done that. So we were providing the leadership to that sales manager. And
Yes.
and I remember working with a guy recently where, you know, I sort of went, you don't know how to sell, do you? Right. And he's
Yeah,
leading a
right.
sales team. And the sales team had no faith in this guy whatsoever because this
Exactly.
guy couldn't sell himself.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
wasn't a salesperson. Didn't have that industry knowledge. So this is a really tricky. How do you get around it then? How do we work with this?
Well, I think that it would be an advantage for them to have it, right? You know, that it's not to say it's an absolute requirement, but I think, you know, one of the things that I think teams want from their leaders is the knowledge that the leader has the credibility, the confidence, the competency to be able to lead the team. So I think if they don't have that, they'll struggle. I know leaders that have come from a banking background and then moved into the financial planning background, and that's worked, okay? But I do hear a few talkings of, well, they know banking, but they don't really know financial planning. So there's a bit of that. But I think if that leader is willing to upskill and develop and learn and just absorb themselves in that industry, then leadership is leadership.
So from your perspective, how are you bringing these two together? Because you've mentioned that you've got workshops and programs that you do with people. What's your best thing, or how are you going to bring these two together in the work you do as a coach and trainer?
Yeah. So, just the same as what you probably did with the waste management company. Whenever a company comes to me, I'm not just looking at what they're coming to me with, right? Just like a financial planner wouldn't look when a client comes to them, right, I want to retire in 5 years. They're not going to just let's look at retiring in 5 years. They're going to look at all of the other things that are going to help them. Insurances, estate planning, those areas. So for me, when a company comes to me and says, Kylie, we need to develop our financial planners with, sales skills or soft skills or interpersonal skills, I'm always going to look at the holistic part of the business. I'm always going to go, okay, well, we can look at that, but let's talk about your leadership. Let's talk about your staff engagement. Let's talk about your retention, your turnover. Let's talk about your conversion. Let's talk about the whole part of it, because when I'm going to go and service a client and I'm going to work with a client, I'm going to make sure I deliver what they want. I'm going to make sure I deliver the outcome that they want. So if I just provided a sales program or a soft skills program and forgot about the leadership, then if that doesn't work, who's going to be at fault? They're going to go, the sales program didn't work. And I'm like, well, yeah, it does. It works if you work it. So therefore, you've got to have the right leaders in place. So I will always look at how do we need to develop the leaders to how do we need to develop our planners. What do you think?
You mentioned something really, really, really interesting there, and it's can you actually sell into your industry? So for an example is, I worked with a major engineering firm here in the UK, and they were having a 3-day sales training for all of their engineers. And the way a sale works is that if they're doing major projects like waterways and groins, and which is a big topic worldwide now, right? Because of global warming and rising waterfront properties, and in America, for example, down in Louisiana, they lose 10,000 acres a year, right?
Wow.
The ocean, right? Now that's a major problem that's got to be, it's an engineering solution, right?
Yes,
and
of course.
The thing I'd find is that these engineers were having sales training on how to go in and close a sale with a local government authority, and the contracts they're closing are maybe in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, right? And they're going in to try and close those. And I'd actually looked at that company and how a sale actually works in that industry.
Yes.
And here's 2 days, there's a room full of engineers who are very glum looking, trying to do role playing and closing and stuff like that. And I said, I think you're wasting your money. He said, why? I said, because you're not allowed to close. You're not allowed to close anybody in a sale. There's a procurement policy, and all you can do is present the information, and then it's got to go off an independent procurement thing. They're not allowed to close. So why are you wasting days on that? That's a leadership issue. My question was the leader. Why didn't the leader know that? Right?
Yeah.
So they were running the gauntlet of all these disgruntled, and ask an engineer the time and they'll build you a watch, right?
Yes.
So they were over presenting and things like that. So the leadership part is what you're talking about is really, really important. It's what's the context of how we sell. And
well, I always go, you can't have a great sales team without great leadership.
No.
Right, because the leader is going to set the vision. It's going to make sure you've got goals. It's going to make sure that you've got development plans, skill development plans in place. It's going to have the coaching and the mentoring there. It's going to provide your ability to really unpack where your areas of growth are. So to me, if a leader doesn't know how to do that, if they don't know how to problem solve, if they don't know how to set goals, or develop development plans, right? And I work with many organizations where I'm helping them around their development plans. So how do we then, are we just going to hope that the salesperson, because they're a financial planner or because they're an engineer or because they're an accountant, that they actually know how to do sales?
Well, as a leader, you're talking about strategic direction. The leaders actually employed to provide strategic direction to the team, right? This is where we're going. This is why we're doing. That's that vision piece you talked about, and also they've got to keep their eye on business performance.
Yeah.
So they'll be given targets. This is what we're trying to achieve, right? But they're also action to build a high performing team.
Yeah.
Those three things, which are really surface, which sales sits underneath that. So a high performing team, if they're not getting that strategic direction or they've got the resources, all of those things that you've mentioned, that is a leadership problem straight away. So I think you're onto something.
And you know what else I think as well is, and we see it a lot in financial services, and this is some really interesting data that's coming out. And I'm not sure if I talk to you or whether or not I talk to anyone who will listen, really. But there's $15 trillion worldwide,
Yes.
okay, that will over the next 10 years go from our baby boomers to our generation X, Y, and Z. Okay. So what we're finding, especially in the financial services industry, ever since we had the Royal Commission and COVID, was that we are so focused on compliance and process that we have lost our ability to connect with customers. So many financial planners or accountants or financial service professionals will go and do their degrees or go and do their studies, which is all technical. And then they come out, but no one's taught them how to connect with a client, how to create soft skills, how to use emotional intelligence. So I find the same with leadership. If we're going to put someone into a position, a financial planning position or a leadership position, then let's give them the tools and the resources to be successful. And I say this all the time with leadership. It's just the same with sales. If we're going to put someone in, we wouldn't put a doctor in a hospital and say, right, you're now a doctor, just doctor, or a solicitor or an accountant or a financial planner. So why wouldn't we provide financial planners or sales teams with the ability to have deep, meaningful conversations, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to overcome objections, to be able to close with confidence, to be able to use your emotional intelligence to really develop a connection with your client. And I think that's why it's so important that we provide that training.
Yeah, for me, and I'm building on what you're saying there. For me, it comes back to: if you're in a leadership role and you're in charge of leaders, in charge of salespeople, what's the context with which you sell? And most sales teams I go into, like the engineers I described, like financial planners, right? It's a multi-step complex sale, right? So it's not like you walk into a shop and I'll have some milk.
A pie, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's a multi-step complex sale, right?
Yes, it is.
And it has a skill set behind it. And those, the analysis, I created a thing called the sales profile, and it answers a question: can you sell in a multi-step complex sales environment? And there's 13 skills, but there's also not only the skill to do it, but the will to do it.
Yeah.
Those are the two factors of it: skill and will. Right. And we all know people who've got the skill but low will, and someone with a high will and low skill will actually outperform someone with high skills, low will.
Yes, I agree.
As a leader, you need to know that. And so for the engineers, when I profiled those engineers, all of them were really good at presenting information, but rubbish at closing. And so the company drew the conclusion, we've got to teach them how to close. But I said, but you're not allowed to close. So that's your compliance. You mentioned before that we've come through a time where compliance has been very heavy in the finance sector, and so it should. And so it should be there.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah, because a lot of people were sold dodgy products that weren't suitable for them.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we have that, right? But I really hear what you're saying about that. In a complex sale, it's all about emotional intelligence. It's all about that, what you call the soft
connection,
skills.
human connection.
It's
Do you
all
know?
about that.
Yeah, it is. It is. And even those the Generation X, Y, and Z, they actually want more connection. But let me tell
Totally.
you, I actually have a different framework for that skill, Will. I actually have a three-pronged framework. I have skill, will, or leadership. So skill is something we can train, we can develop, we can build capability, we
Yep.
can coach, we can buddy, we can mentor.
Yep.
Will, that's that internal drive, that intrinsic motivation that we can have a conversation about and see whether or not we can motivate to inspire them or inspire them to motivate themselves. But then the third pillar is leadership. What have you done as the leader to do this? And I remember when I had to lay a staff member off, and I pulled this framework out, and I was like, right, is it a skill issue? Is it a will issue, or is it a leadership issue? Is there something that I haven't done as the leader, not provided the tools, resources, coaching, mentoring, expectations, guidance, whatever it might be, in order to set them up for success? Because that's what our role as a leader is. And I remember thinking, oh, I could do a little bit more of this. So therefore, I can't manage him out yet. So I could do a little bit more of this, a little bit more. So until I had fully covered my box of the leader, that was only when I went, there's nothing more I can do. This is a will issue. We need to move him out. And this probably goes right to my point around sales in leadership in sales, is that you need, in order to have a great sales team, you got to be a great leader.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's becoming even more patent from what you've just argued there. It's the skill stuff you can train, as you're right. You can train the people up on that. Particularly in financial planning, you can train people on the compliance and the governance. So you might have someone who's got you and I. We both have a drive to sell. We're good sellers, and we have a drive for it. Right? I love sales. I love the sales environment. Yeah. I got loads of will. Right. I got a real. I call it a drive to succeed in sales. I got a really high drive in that. Right? And I've never had a problem selling. Right. And I can't understand people who are frightened of selling, right? Never could. However, I operated, because of our psych training, we also operated within a context of do no harm. Our study on ethics, for example. How do we operate within an ethical framework, right? So that sort of tempers the will, if you like. And as a leader, you've got to understand that balance. I get frustrated with leaders that try and promote people with no drive for selling, give them loads of technical thing, but they don't really know how to address the drive piece, the will piece, right? But I think what that third point you've got is the leadership piece. That's where that really comes into its own. It's understanding that. That's where it's really powerful. Yeah. What's the takeaway for anyone watching this?
Well, for me, the biggest takeaway is how do we as leaders not only look at what do our team need to be successful, but also what do you as the leader need to be successful? Is that getting clarity around coaching or development around coaching? Is that around team cohesion? Is that around problem solving? Is it around goals? Is it around vision? What is it? I'm always asking leaders to reflect on themselves as a leader, rather than just going, my teams are not making budget, or there's 3 people in my team that are not making budget or not doing what they need to be doing. Like this, it is a direct reflection of us as the leader. So for me, it's how do you look at yourself in order to be able to successfully lead in a team. What about you? What's the takeaway for you?
The takeaway always for me around sales and leadership is, and that you've connected the two really well, is I'm a big fan of sales. Nothing happens if you don't sell anything, right? Nothing ever happens if you don't sell anything. But for me, when I work with leaders in complex sales particularly, I talk about just change the word sales to help someone make an informed decision.
It's not selling, it's helping.
It's really helping. Particularly on a multi-step complex sale, it's someone has to make an informed decision. Because the law only supports an informed. You can backtrack a sale and say, well, you didn't help person make an informed choice.
Yes.
You can actually show that, right, in your paperwork and things. So,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
but the decision to buy is actually a chemical decision in the mind of the person who's being sold to, whether they want to
Yeah.
buy or
Yeah.
not, right?
The connection. Yeah.
But that's all about leadership. That's
Yeah.
all about leadership. So I've seen leaders, you've got to get out and sell more, sell more, sell more, but they're not, they can't sell themselves. And so the thing that they're not saying to the team is, I actually don't know how to sell. Let's bring in a sales manager, or let's give you the training you need. That's a
Yeah.
big step for a leader to say,
Yes.
So that bit you're talking about is, how am I as a leader with a very active sales function underneath you? I think that's really worth exploring for people.
Yeah, I think, and probably just a final comment from me is, I'm often saying leadership is an investment, not a cost.
Yeah.
And I think soft skills training, interpersonal skills training, sales skills training, whatever you want to call it, training is an investment, not a cost. In many situations, they could write 10 more policies for what they paid me and they'd be done. Right. So, which is easily achievable with one planner. So, and I think that's where many businesses fail. They just go, well, they should know how to do that. They're a professional. Whereas to me, actually, you have a responsibility to provide the resources, tools, and support and training and development or coaching or mentoring or whatever it is in order to set your people up for success. Isn't that the legacy you want to leave as a leader? I know it's the legacy I want to leave as a leader.
Well, I know with the waste management people, the team want to feel supported.
Yeah.
They want the resources. They want to know that what they're doing is compliant. They don't want to ever walk into somebody and say, "Well, no, you guys tip stuff down the street. You do fly tipping."
Yeah.
They want to know that what we're doing is real. But the guy who's leading that is technically right across everything, but can't sell. Right, and he's not, but he's averse to providing the resources that team needs. I think that's the self-honesty piece that you're talking about. It's where am I with this as a leader? What do my team need? And so that they can then help their customers make informed choices. But I like the framework, the skill, the will, and the leadership piece is really cool. Yeah.
We can't just blame it on the people. This is what I often think is, it's either skill or a will issue. It's kind of like it's their problem, not my problem. Whereas as soon as my team have a problem, it becomes my problem as well. I'm the leader of that. So for me, that's very much a blame culture. Whereas when I, unpack it, and I have so many leaders say to me, oh my God, Kylie, it's me. It was me.
Yeah.
I should have done this, right? In order to set them up for success. And there's that light bulb moment. So I think in this situation, leaders make a dramatic impact on their teams, and therefore they should consider how they lead in order to get success.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree. It's a good place, and anyone who's watching this either live or on catch up, it's probably take a week just to think, how am I as the leader of salespeople?
Yeah.
Do I need to reach out to Kylie about this?
Yeah. Your sales, we've actually just done a scorecard for financial planning leaders, so I might actually pop that into the comment section as well for anyone that just wants to measure the sales effectiveness and how well their financial planners are going in this space. So I'll pop that in the chat and in the comment section for anyone that might want to complete that as well.
And you know what, Kylie, in case people missed it, it wasn't lost on me. You said the transfer of 15 trillion, right?
15 trillion.
If you're watching this and you're in sales, particularly in financial planning, right? That's the big trend on the horizon to look at.
Yeah.
And if you're leading salespeople, particularly, how do you sell to Gen X, Y, and Zs, whatever?
Exactly.
Now's the time to invest in your training.
Now's the time to invest, and for Australia, for the Australian market, $435 billion is our cut of that, which is 2% of that $15 trillion worldwide. So $435 billion is going to transfer down from our baby boomers to our generation X, Y, and Z over the next 10 years. for me, one of the things that financial planning organizations need to be thinking about is how are we having conversations with our clients and their families, because it's that transfer of wealth that we need to be having better conversations around that.
And I'm assuming too that on your team you'd have generation X, Y's and Z's as well, and they want to be trained in a very, very different way as a leader. You know, I mean, the way I was trained to sell was very much baby boomer way, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
it works, but it may not work as well.
Yeah, true. And we have to look at that not only as a leader, because we're leading different generations, but we also do need to look at, well, what's the era or generation that our planners are, and then what is the era of our clients, right?
That's
now
it.
and into the future. So it's how do we have multi conversations in different generations? It's much more complex than I think many people give credit to.
I think today the big takeaway for me is if you're a leader in finance, in particularly in the finance sector, you know, are you wealth transfer ready?
Yeah, wealth transfer ready. Yeah, that's a good title actually. I like it. We're going to be doing that. Yeah, well, I'm going to be, yeah, I like it. Well, yeah, are you wealth transfer ready? I'm going to be talking more and more about this topic over the next couple of months with a number of organisations that we're doing some live webinars on, because I really do think it's something that we need to be spruiking loud, because if we are not starting to be ready for it, then we're going to see a massive loss of wealth, right? Because those generation X, Y, and Z, they'll go, you know what? I don't need a financial planner. I'll do it myself, right? I can easily access information. We're far more educated in this space than what the baby boomers were when they first started. We're already starting to see a reduction in clients taking up financial advice. That will only increase. So we need to really start to think about how do we engage that next generation.
That's it. Very, very much so. And particularly, as I say, if you've got sales targets here, the thing that'll make you weep is if you go, no, I don't need to know this stuff, and then another company who's not as well heeled as you and has the teams that you've got, they suddenly bypass you. They suddenly leap ahead past you, and you go, why did they get the business?
Yes,
that's not fair. But
yeah.
So I think this the leadership piece is really cool.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much. So great to see you again, Andrew.
Likewise, Kylie. Likewise.
Have a wonderful.
Yeah, I think we need to talk more about this one.
Yeah, I know. Because you just got me on a high at the end, and I was like, right, I could just go into that topic and talk about that for ages. So maybe we talk about that in the next fortnight as well.
I think so. There's a lot of issues to unpack in there, that's for sure.
Have a wonderful day in the UK and enjoy the last bit of your summer before it starts to get cool again.
Yeah, don't jinx the hot weather, Kylie.
No, I won't. I'm sending our sunshine to you.
It's been lovely. Yeah, it's been lovely here. Yeah. No worries. Good stuff. And Kylie, if people need to reach out to you, what do? They just leave a message below on the thing.
Yeah, connect with us on LinkedIn. Connect with you on LinkedIn as well. So you're there. Connect with me. Connect with you, Andrew. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Done. See you then.